Start with a dream and share it with some friends. The idea deepens and grows. The dream takes shape, it has form and substance. A community soon arose. A listening room, a hearing room, a place to find a home to play. A listening room, the hearing room. Express yourself and have your say. The walls are thin, sirens blare. The tables sit near folding chairs. The stage is set with paint and blue, and love went into every screw. The light shine bright on every star. They come to play from near and far. The light shine bright on every star. They come to play from near and far. A listening room, a hearing room, a place to find a home to play. A listening room, a hearing room. Express yourself and have your say. Hearing room, a listening room. You're welcome here, so have no fear. The hearing room, the hearing room. Come in, my friend, where art can bloom.
And welcome to the Woodshed podcast. I'm Aaron Tornberg, and I'm here today with two people who I'm big fans of because I have used their books for about, 25 years. I started using them in 94, 95, 96, around that time. And the books are called Rise Up Singing and Rise Again. And those of you who know me from the Folk Song Society of Greater Boston, you know these books real well. So this is very exciting for me. And how are you guys doing today?
Well, we're glad to be here with you. We're doing pretty good.
And this is
a really nice sunny day down here in Amherst, Mass.
Right, and I forgot to say this is Annie Patterson and Peter Blood. I talked up the books without you guys, so that's important.
No problem.
And so we'll be talking to them shortly. I'm going to talk a little about the hearing room, and I'm going to mention that at the hearing room, we have been, trying to figure out how to deal with all this stuff with the coronavirus. And what we have come up with is that we are going to do a lot of online stuff until this passes. So we are doing our open mics on Tuesdays and Sunday, and the Tuesday one is at 7, and it goes 7 to 10. The Sunday one is one I run from 2 to 5. And we also are trying to figure out a way to do the jam on Thursdays. Probably you would just listen to a leader, and then everybody can jam with it at home because there is a lag. But at your home, there's no lag because you can just play with whatever you hear. So it's a lot of stuff we're going to be working on, and we also are going to be doing some live shows that are going to actually be from the hearing room with no audience. So we are going to have these shows going on pretty soon. I know Don White is going to do a show. I don't know if he's doing it at the hearing room, but he's doing it for the hearing room. And there are several others we're getting lined up. Kaylin has already done a set on April 11th from the hearing room. So we're getting going. And one thing we do need is membership. So please go to the website, hearingroom.net, and you can be a member. It's $100 a year. And for that, you get a T-shirt, you get your membership card, and you get the satisfaction of knowing you're supporting the hearing room. Plus, if you go to the events, once they are in person again, it's $5 off the events, which are usually $5. So if you do the math, that means they don't cost anything. So it's worth it. If you believe that you go every week to the hearing room and do the jam or whatever, you can pay all that up front and then not feel like the suggested donation is something you need to worry about because you've already taken care of your suggested donation. And we really appreciate it. That's how we pay our bills. That's how we do the rent. That's how we do the utilities. So please, hearingroom.net, go and become a member, and we'll be very grateful. We also want to thank the Greenville Junction Shoppy. Greenville, Greenville, Junction, Junktion, as in junk, Shoppy, Shoppe. So the Greenville Junction Shop is an upcycling shop with a very new physical location in Greenville, New Hampshire. They have been just online on the Facebook Marketplace so far, but now they have a location in Greenville, New Hampshire, right downtown, and you can check it out. You can go up there and see all of the things that they have for sale that have been gently used and refurbished just for you. So, that being said, let's start talking to Annie Patterson and Peter Blood. So you guys, I've talked you up a bit already. Your book, the Rise Up Singing book, the first one, I read online how that came to be in your little description on your website, which is riseupandsing.com, right?
.org.
Oh, .org. I'm sorry.
Well, actually, .com gets there, but it's basically .org, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can find us, but riseupandsing.org is the main way.
Yeah, and you know what's exciting to me lately about that particular site is I went and bought all the teaching cassettes way back when, and they're tough because you have to fast forward through each song and try to find the one you want. And now you have a website with examples of many of, or all of the songs, right?
We put together, with the help of some wonderful folks, especially give a shout out to Mark Hyman. It's a search engine on our website, and you can plug in the name of any song in any of our books, and it'll take you to a YouTube video of that song, so you can hear what, and there's often different options of people who are performing it that you can listen to.
And actually, you can go all the way through a whole chapter just as you could with those old teaching discs or CDs. So if you find a song in a particular chapter and you like that chapter, you can, after you finish listening to that, you can just click to the next at the bottom of the page. It'll take you to the whole chapter like that.
It's a great way to lose a couple hours of your day.
Oh, yeah. I've lost many. But it's a good thing. So now, why don't you retell a little bit how that started, how the idea started?
For Rise Up Singing?
Yeah, well, it was Peter at the camp, right?
Yeah.
We're going into ancient history here.
That's right.
Back in the early 70s, I was a camp counselor at a camp in Vermont, Plymouth, Vermont, and the camp counselors there were sick of their old camp songbook because it was all sort of musty old, well, I shouldn't say that. People are going to feel resentful. Traditional songs like...
it was limited.
I like to go hiking in the woods kind of songs. And they said, we want to have songs, like Joan Baez and Peter, Paul and Mary and Bob Dylan and Pete Seeger. And the book doesn't have any of those. Well, of course, that's partly because those are copyrighted songs. But anyway, we spent the summer brainstorming what a new songbook would be like if we could get permission to put them in. And it was too big a project for one summer. So at the end of the summer, we had a kind of a list of about maybe a couple hundred songs we'd like to put in there. And the project took a lot longer than we expected. Finally, in 1979, a underground book, we didn't yet have permissions, with about 600 songs came out called Winds of the People. And we actually sold 30,000 copies through people's basements and living rooms and places like that. And that book continued for about 10 years. And then eventually we got an agreement with Sing Out magazine to bring the book out into the light of day and into actual official stores and places like that. And Pete Seeger's manager was very helpful in getting us to get permissions from big publishers like Warner Brothers Music and Hal Leonard Music. So we were able to put things like Beatles songs and Broadway musicals in there. Rather, all the people like Bob Dylan and Tom Paxton and Joan Baez, when we put their songs in, they gave us permission anyway. But the songs that were owned by big companies, Pete Seeger's manager made a huge difference.
Wow. And so you guys met, or it said you got married in 1981, right?
We got married in 1983. We met each other in 1981. I immediately jumped in on helping out with Winds of the People at that time. I was a graphic artist, and I was mentioning to you earlier before we started talking on this podcast that I was a radio DJ. So I had access to a lot of information about folk music, because at that time, the WXPN where I worked had the biggest collection of folk music LPs on the East Coast. Mm-hmm. So we both loved music, and we loved kind of all kinds of genres. So so it was a natural fit for us to work together on the songbook project. Okay.
And when you started working on it, you fell in love and got married while working on the book. Is that kind of what happened?
Well, we met at a square dance, and Peter was a contra dancer, which is a lovely, New England specialty, but a lot of people contra dance all over the country. Yeah. And I was a square dancer and an old-timey banjo player. And back where we lived at the time in Philadelphia, those two camps kind of judged each other. So when I met him at a square dance, I thought he was a square dancer. So little did I know that he was a radical contra dancer. But at any rate, that's how we met. We really didn't fall in love over doing music together, although I think it was a common bond. Our families had the same songbooks in our homes growing up. Our families had similar values around social justice and wanting to do good service in the world. So
we did start leading sing-alongs together at big Quaker conferences back in the early 80s using that Winds of the People book. And we realized that even though it was a good book, that we could do even better. So we actually started thinking quite not too long after we got married about the idea of making another book, which eventually became Rise Up Singing.
Mm-hmm. So you had like a test book to begin with. That's great.
Yeah, we had a illegal test book. I mean, the thing about Winds of the People was when I met Peter, it had already really caught on word of mouth amongst certain people. And I would say those were sort of the folks like who were doing social change work and community organizing and camps. But yeah, I mean, I think we both realized and maybe came up with the same idea at the same time that we needed to make it a legal songbook, because at some point it started to really take off. And I was like, you know what? We need to make this above board. And actually, Peter had been really smart. He had saved all the proceeds of that songbook in a separate account that he didn't touch. So when we went to do Rise Up Singing, we had a little chest of resources to go to Sing Out and say, hey, you guys don't have to spend a lot of money on this project. We just need your help.
Sing Out never would have been able to afford. It was at that point, it was a tiny little office in Easton, Pennsylvania. I think essentially one or two rooms, and they never would have had the resources to put out a big book like that. But we were able to bring $50,000 that we'd saved up from this other illegal book and say, hey, we've got the money. If you'll provide sort of the structure and help us to get permissions, we'll make a new book.
But that wouldn't have happened if my Peter hadn't gone to Pete Seeger and said, what do you think about this project? Because Pete loved the project and he loved the idea of Sing Out backing it. And so Pete and Toshi, his wife Toshi, went to the Sing Out board meeting and stood in front of the board and said, we want you guys to do this songbook. And that was a really big deal for us because nobody knew who we were, but people knew who Pete was. People knew about Sing Out magazine, and Pete's manager had those connections, which were invaluable.
We went to a bunch of other publishers and we said, we got this idea for this book. Will you publish it? And they said, well, is it a songbook? And we said, yeah, but it doesn't have any music in it. And they said, well, we don't do songbooks without music. And then we'd go to other kind of publishers and they'd say, well, we don't do music books. And, basically nobody could quite wrap their heads around it. I think some of those publishers are probably a little sad that they didn't take the book on since it sold about 1 million copies.
Oh, well.
Not enough imagination.
Yeah, well, it was a great idea. And, I immediately wanted to use it when I first got a copy because I was doing camp song leading as well. Did you both grow up in New England, or Peter, did you just go to camp in Vermont, or you grew up?
Yeah, I grew up in Michigan, and I did go to New England every summer to visit my grandparents who lived in Concord, New Hampshire. Mm-hmm. And Annie wasn't a New Englander either. We've actually only lived here really since 2006.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we went. I grew up outside of Philadelphia, and my parents loved to go camping, so sometimes we would head up north and camp. But I never really knew much about New England until we moved here.
Yeah. So, and you're in Amherst now, right?
Yeah, we're in Amherst, Massachusetts, and we've been living here for, about 15 years?
13 years.
14.
Yeah.
14.
Yeah, we love it here.
Well, that makes you a New Englander by now, I'm sure. So,
yeah, we know all how to act like we've lived here a long time.
And how to use the lingo and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Because you're wicked cool. So,
right.
Now the songbooks you did, and how was it received when you did get it published? What happened?
It really took off like a bang. I think we sold about 30,000 copies probably in the first year. So that was as many as we'd sold of Rise Up Singing in about 10 years. Winds of the People in about 10 years underground. And it never really got publicized in a regular promotional way. I mean, nobody put it in papers. We didn't get reviews in any books or any magazines or anything like that. But it took off from people who like to sing with their friends, people who like to sing at their churches and synagogues, people who were organizing for peace and for social justice, like to have some songbooks to use when they were having retreats and things like that. Yeah,
we already had a network of people and this was before computers, before the internet.
Right.
We had computer, but it was DOS programming. But yeah, so Peter and I had a network. Also, we had a lot of wonderful people help us make the book. So we had a whole host of volunteers and people helping us from all over the country and Canada and from other places in the world. So we had kind of this strange way that word of mouth was doing what maybe the interweb would do today. I don't know.
Well, it helped that Pete Seeger was a huge fan because I know that at many of his concerts he would say, I'd like to tell you about this book.
Yeah, he'd hold it up from the stage.
He'd hold it up from the stage. So all of a sudden you'd have like 500 people say, hey, I better go get that book. Pete Seeger says it's a good book.
My mother-in-law was in the audience at one of Pete Seeger's concerts when he talked about the book, and she said, "That's my son," from the audience. But yeah, so we knew we had kind of made it. It took a few years. We actually went on tour with the book. We took our 5-year-old at the time and plopped him in a car a few years later after the book had come out, and we traveled up through Michigan to Canada, and then through Saskatchewan all the way to the West Coast, and then down through California and traveled back through the southern states. And that was about a 4-month journey. Oh my God, it was so long ago. It's all a blur. But I do remember some really specific stories from that trip. And we were visiting all these places where we knew connections with people who loved music. And so I think that helped boost the songbook as well.
Great. How did you get to know Pete Seeger?
Well, actually, I had been, like everybody else in folk music, kind of a distant fan of his. You know, I had his records when I was in high school, had a couple of his songbooks that my friends and I used to sing out of. And I actually first saw him in concert in 1964, but I didn't really meet him then. And I actually used to have dreams about him when I was in college. He was kind of like this, I don't know, figure in my deep unconscious speaking to me. And I never figured I'd actually get to know him. But when we were doing Winds of the People, somebody I knew Pete and gave me his phone number, and I called him up and I said, you know, I keep calling up these publishers and saying, can we use your song in this book? You know, we're not going to put any music in. It's not going to get in the way with your profits. And they tell me, go away or we'll sue you. And he said, don't bother to get permission. They'll only say no. And that was my first conversation with Pete Seeger.
That was Pete's attitude.
His publisher wasn't probably very happy about that.
No, his publisher was not happy about that.
But anyway, later on when we were thinking about doing Rise Up Singing and went to, as Annie said earlier, to the board of Sing Out, we did meet Pete and Toshi there, and they were immediately hugely big fans and helped us to choose songs for Rise Up Singing. And I did get to know him pretty well for the next few years after the book came out. He was on the board of Sing Out magazine at the time, so I saw him at board meetings and board retreats and things like that. And he wasn't into selling his own CDs, but sometimes when he'd go do a concert, he'd say, you know, Peter, I know you've got a lot of those CDs of mine. Why don't you bring some of them along? Because some people might like some of my CDs. So I'd often go and when he'd do a concert somewhere,
we'd go and bring his CDs and we'd sell them at his concert.
Yeah, just since he didn't really want to get involved in that particular.
He really didn't like to have the focus on himself. Yeah, which was sort of interesting.
But then the big thing that happened after that was that one day, I got about maybe 3 or 4 years after Rise Up Singing came out, I got a call from Harold Leventhal, his manager, and he said, I'd like you to come up to New York and do a meeting with me. And Pete will be there. And I had no idea what he was talking about. So we met at some coffee shop or deli or something in Manhattan. And basically what Harold says is there are all these songs that Pete wrote that I'm losing court cases on to keep them copyrighted because they've kind of been used too much generally, and people don't realize they're really Pete Seeger songs. So I want there to be a book of Pete Seeger songs. And Pete said, well, I don't really care that much about just trying to protect the copyrights, but I would like to kind of tell people about what was happening in my life when I wrote these songs. And so the idea was we'd do a book that would both be a story of Pete's life and also a collection of his songs. Harold had a different agenda basically than Pete's did. And Pete told Harold, I like what Peter Blood did with that Rise Up Singing Songbook. I'll work on it if you'll get him to be the editor. So how could I say no, right? And so the next year or so, I basically spent a lot of time either at our house or up at Pete's house in Beacon, New York, working on this book. It took a long time to wrap it all up. And eventually that book, I know you said, Aaron, you've got a copy of it. It was called Where Have All the Flowers Gone? It came out 1993. And so that way I really, and Annie, of course, through that whole process of working on the book, got also to know him much more personally.
Yeah, it was a really special thing to have Pete come to our home. And I mean, he was kind of a shy man, really. But if you got him talking about something he was passionate about, then he'd talk for a really long time and it was almost hard to shut him up. So it was kind of this fascinating thing to get to know him and appreciate him as a he was the real deal. He really was. He was everything everybody thought that he was in terms of the goodness that he had. And also his wife, Toshi, doesn't get enough credit for kind of keeping everything together. Mm-hmm. So it was a really sweet thing to have those years of Pete working with Peter on that songbook and I mean the autobiography. And I know you're trying to get it back in print. So I don't know how that's going to go forward, but we've been working on it. It's out of print right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I got my copy when I could.
Yeah.
But it's a nice book, and, you know, it has the music as well in it, which is kind of cool.
Pete loved that book so much. I mean, it kills me that it's not, out there right now, because he loved that book. It was everything he wanted. It even with the cover, he said, I don't want it to be about me. I want it to be about all the people and musicians that influenced me. And then he has all these letters and, personal letters that Woody Guthrie wrote him. And you get to see the wealth of people that influenced him. And I think today, and especially now, we're having a lot of time to do reflection. And, I have been thinking a lot about people who have helped me get where I am. And that's what Pete wanted to show, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a beautiful book. And, I enjoyed Pete's music as well, like everybody else who does folk music. You kind of can't avoid it. In fact, one of the best concerts I ever saw was him with Arlo Guthrie. I think they were amazing in concert. Just something magical happened every time he performed, and it was amazing. Did you guys perform with him ever?
I got to do that. I got to sing with him on a really sweet song called Quite Early Morning. I don't know if we got to perform with him that any other times that I can remember. I think we would have remembered it. We spent a lot of time hanging out with him over those years of just, connecting. We'd take songbooks up to his house, say hi, have a cup of tea. But yeah, not performing with him so much.
Well, I noticed you sent me some stuff to play, and I thought maybe here would be a good time to play "Oh, Had I a Golden Thread," because that's a Pete Seeger song, right? Is that one of his?
Yeah, it is, and he wrote that song. I don't remember when he wrote it actually, but it's just a beautiful song. It's very hopeful. And then I heard a version of Toshi Regan singing it, and she had sort of made it into this waltz time on it. So this version that I'm doing is a little bit of a different take on the song, but the message is really sweet.
And Peter, are you on this as well, or not on this one?
He's inspiring me from a distance on this.
If you'd
one.
like, we can do some live stuff with you in a bit.
Okay.
He's not on this recording, though.
Okay. Well, let's play this. I thought it'd be a good time since we're talking about Pete Seeger. So this is "Oh, Had I a Golden Thread" by Annie Patterson.
Oh, had I a golden thread, a needle so fine, I would weave a magic strand, rainbow design, a rainbow design. In it I'd weave the bravery of women giving birth, and in it
So there's your live audience. Since we don't have a live audience right now, I figure we'd create one.
Nice.
And that was a big arena. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
So that was great. And did you? Now you play with a band as well, Annie, right?
Yeah, I mean, I sing with a lot of different folks, but I've been in a swing band for probably, I don't know, over 30 years now at any rate, called Girls from Mars. We used to all live near each other outside of Philadelphia, and we'd sing every weekend for all kinds of events and weddings. And so, yeah, and now I'm up here in this area. Sometimes I'll sing with a band called the O-Tones as a substitute vocalist, and I've done a lot of different kinds of jazz appearances, and I have my major feet are in the folk world, obviously, but
right.
She made 3 albums since we moved up here, and that one was the Mountainside album, it's called, and she used some great musicians, including Tracy Grammer, former partner of Dave Carter, and let's see, Jim Henry was on that album, and a bunch of other people. So you probably heard some of those people playing on that particular track.
Right.
So,
it sounded great. It sounded great.
Thank you.
So you guys are, I read that you're Quakers. Can you explain what a Quaker is to us?
Yeah, I mean, Peter was born and raised in the Quaker faith. I came to it as a young adult.
Quakers were born in the time of Oliver Cromwell, when there was no king in England, mid 1600s. And
there were 4 years in the history of England.
No, not
right?
4.
Where there was no king.
No, it was about 20 years, Annie.
Really?
Yeah.
That long?
Well, 12 years, I guess.
Uh-oh.
Anyway,
okay. I got to go back and read my history.
They cut off Charles I's head, and it was about maybe 12 or 13 years before they brought the next king back. But anyway, they were notable primarily because they allowed women to preach, and a number of their original itinerant traveling preachers were women as well as men, and they kind of burst across England and were part of the sort of the radical Reformation of people who were challenging things like class differences and things like that. And it's known primarily in this country because William Penn bought or received a grant from the king of Pennsylvania to be a colony, and he brought a lot of the Quakers that were being persecuted in England over here to start this new colony, and they were notable for having tried to treat the Indians fairly, the Native Americans here fairly. And,
I mean, there's a lot of things about Quakerism that are just, there's a lot to it, just like any faith. There's branches, different branches, different kinds of Quakers. And
you mean like Richard Nixon?
Yeah, they're radically kind of evangelical Quakers, but basically Quakers believe that there's that of God in every person, and that we can hear God's voice, and we can help each other discern what that means. And so we meet with a meeting in Leverett, Massachusetts, called Mount Toby Friends Meeting.
Mm.
And Quakers are pretty well respected, I think, for their work for peace, for racial justice. Sometimes maybe they get more credit than they should for those things.
Yeah.
But we are glad that Quakers try very hard to make a difference in the world, now working very hard on climate issues.
Yeah, and my experience with Quakers and also Shakers, which you're not, but the music kind of it sort of goes to other denominations. I actually was a member of a congregation, a Jewish congregation in Manchester, New Hampshire, where the rabbi was bringing in Quaker hymns and using it in the Jewish service. Is music one of the things that's really big in Quaker life, and is that a connection to folk music for you?
Actually, ironically, Quakers did not do choral singing for a very, very long time. Early Quakers associated singing and services with a certain form of worship, the Church of England, that they didn't approve of. So for about 200 years, Quakers didn't really sing together. And Shakers did. They were a kind of a schism off of the Quakers, and they used music and dance very actively in their shared life, but Quakers did not really until the late 19th century. And for instance, some people say that How Can I Keep From Singing was a Quaker hymn, but it really was not. It was a gospel hymn that kind of got popularized by Pete Seeger and by Quakers in the 1970s or 80s.
But today people sing
Today they
in
do,
Quaker
yeah.
meetings all
Absolutely.
over the world, and singing is a big, big part of Quakerism now. I mean, I think there was a bit of a singing revolution that possibly happened, but there's Quaker hymnals and, a lot of great songs written by Quakers.
Yeah, and so when you are doing songs at a Quaker meeting, do you lead them, or is it just a congregational thing?
Well, the meetings that we go to are part of a branch that has silent worship. What? You talk.
I was just saying, I'm not sure that they need to know all the details of the branches of Quakers, but
Okay.
our particular kind of Quakerism, people do not sing together during the worship.
We sing afterwards.
We sometimes have singing before worship or afterwards or on other times. We have
or somebody can stand up and sing a song.
one person might sing, but we don't all sing together. And we do have a concert series that meets once a month at our meeting house and bring in really wonderful musicians. Often have musicians who are committed to social justice and peace. And people do really like to sing when we do group singing. And many, many meeting houses have a monthly, kind of like your jams that you have up there
Right.
at your hearing. I forget the name of your organization.
Hearing room.
Hearing room. I knew it had hearing
Yeah.
in it. Anyway, a lot of Quaker meeting houses have those kinds of activities, once or twice a month at least. And so Quakers do really like to sing now. And when you go to big conferences and stuff, there's tons of singing.
Yeah. So, Peter, actually, where did you start doing song leading, and what pushed you in that direction?
When I was in high school, there was a group that would meet every Saturday night at our Quaker meeting house. And one of the things we would do there, in addition to folk dancing and talk about the world and the problems of the world, things like that, was we would do singing. And we ran off little mimeograph song sheets that people could have the words to together. And I was one of the people, not the only one, who would lead the singing in this group. And that was definitely, in a sense, a linear predecessor to Winds of the People and Rise Up Singing.
Yeah,
And
mimeograph.
Annie had her own. Annie did the same thing. She also led singing in high school.
Oh, yeah? Through what organization? Was it an organization or just friends?
You talking to Peter or?
Either way.
Your turn. I talked about my group in high school.
Oh, well, I grew up singing in choirs, and I did a lot of theater in high school, and we had a traveling variety show that, I tell people I was incredibly lucky to go to the high school I went to. I went to public school outside of Philadelphia called Lower Merion High School. Now it's quite famous and on the map because of Kobe Bryant, who went there. But I was really lucky. We had a fabulous theater group and resources to do all kinds of stuff. And so we would go and each of us would perform a song and, nursing homes and that kind of thing. And then I was always in choruses and choirs. And so the other thing that happened for me was just I got an opportunity to be in a show, the traveling show that came to Philadelphia of Free to Be You and Me, which was a children's production.
I know that one.
I went to audition with two of my friends. We were all in the chorus together in junior high. And, we kind of fit their prototype, I think, because each of us got a solo in the show. One of us was black, one of us was Jewish, and then there was me, the waspy white kid with freckles and red hair. And but all three of us were really talented because we had been given these opportunities in school to just explore music. And our music teacher at the time, I mean, he just was phenomenal. So that kind of sparked something in me. I loved being in the theater stuff. And
when did you first work as a camp counselor?
I didn't work as a camp counselor. I was a camp cook, but I was part of a camp in Virginia, and I loved it. And we sang every day. This was when I was like a teenager, 18-year-old, almost young adult. And it was a very, very influential experience, I have to say. I think like a lot of people who have positive camp experiences, sometimes those 4 or 8 weeks that you were at the camp change you for the rest of your life. And that was my experience. Yeah,
I mean, I had similar experience in developing a love of singing and folk music from summer camp. I'm kind of bummed that most of the camps are probably not going to have camp this year. It's going to not be possible, I don't think. I loved just getting together, and we'd learn Harry Chapin songs. That was our big thing. A lot of it was Harry Chapin, a lot of it was James Taylor, and that kind of era. But then we had If I Had a Hammer and the Pete Seeger stuff, and it was great. And then I became a song leader too, so I know where you're coming from. And it was more formalized where I did it, where you had a guy with a guitar or a girl with a guitar that would just play for the whole camp at meals usually, and then a big campfire at the end of the week. So
I'm curious, Aaron, do you know Ben Kramars?
I don't.
Do you know who he is?
I'm not sure, no.
He's written a wonderful resource that we sell on our website. I forget the title of the book.
It's called The Guide to Song Leading and Communal Singing.
But Ben comes from the kind of world of Jewish camps, Jewish summer camps, and he wrote this book that is just a great guide for people, that you might meet in your various song leadings that you're doing. But it's just a great guide. He has a whole list of songs in the back that he recommends, and then he lists all the kinds of things you learned how to do as a camp, song leader yourself. And I don't know, it's a great book.
We actually think it's the best book that's ever been written on the subject of song leading
that we've found.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this guy, he used to live in New York. Now he lives in Berkeley, and he has worked with a number of Jewish summer camps, and that's basically where he learned the skills that he put into this guide for song leading.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually saw that on your website, and you must have heard I got a stimulus check, and now I can go spend it on your website. But because I didn't have that book, I actually saw it when I was looking through, and yeah, that did look like something I was going to pick up.
You would relate to it, I bet.
Yeah,
a lot of his stories.
I think I would. So I'm going to have you guys perform something live, but it is about halfway through the show, so I'm going to take a short break here. But then we'll come back and we'll do some live music. So we're talking with Annie Patterson and Peter Blood. And what we are talking about is Rise Up Singing and Rise Again and all of their work with songbooks, with Pete Seeger. And there's more to come. But first I want to talk about the Hearing Room again. We are looking for members, but we are also looking for people who want to participate in the Hearing Room. So if you can participate, that means you can run sound, or you can stand at the door during a show or during the open mics or things like that. If you can do anything like that, or just help us clean up, anything you want to do to volunteer, we are looking for that as well. So we do ask for $100 a year for membership, but you don't have to be a member in order to participate and become part of the community and help out around the hearing room. So that's a very important thing too. And then, you'll get to be behind the scenes, so to speak, of the hearing room and all its mystery. And you could also serve on the board of directors if you're interested in some leadership. So please check out hearingroom.net to find out more about that. And we're going to have some new things coming up soon that are sort of inspired by the fact we can't get together in person. So keep an eye out at hearingroom.net for those. We also want to thank the Greenville Junction Shoppy, the Greenville JUNKTION SHOPPE Shoppy. The Greenville Junction Shop is an upcycling shop selling household appliances and furniture and electronics and all kinds of things that you might want. I have bought a few things there. I bought a computer. I bought a table. And I'm going to buy more probably at some point. There's always things I'm looking for. So that is the Greenville Junction Shop, and they are on Facebook Marketplace, so you can actually shop online, and they will talk to you about how to get the item that you want. And I believe they do some delivery, and they also do pickups at the store in Greenville, New Hampshire. So check it out. Facebook Marketplace is where to find them. All right, so we're back here with Annie Patterson and Peter Blood, authors of several books and also song leaders and musicians. So what are you guys going to play now?
We are going to play a song called Rainbow Connection.
Oh, great.
This is in our more recent collection called Rise Again. For those following along, it's on page 39.
Let me ask you, Annie, did Kermit write this song?
No, but his friends wrote it for him. So people might know this from Kermit the Frog singing it. And the one reason I really like it, we were talking about Quakers earlier. There's a verse in this song that says, have you been half asleep and have you heard voices? And then he says, I've heard them calling my name. And it's the sweet sound that calls the young sailors. And then he says, I've heard it too many times to ignore it. And I think that's the idea for me of right now is having a chance to just sink your feet into the ground. If you can't go outside and touch the earth, just imagine it, your feet going down there and just let yourself connect with that inner voice a little bit. So here's Rainbow Connection.
Great.
Why are there so many songs about rainbows? What's on the other side? Rainbows are visions, but only illusions. Rainbows have nothing to hide. So we've been told, and some choose to believe it. I know they're wrong, wait and see. Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. Who said that every wish would be heard and answered when wished on the morning star? Somebody thought of that and someone believed it. Look what it's done so far. What's so amazing that keeps us stargazing? What do we think we might see? Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. All of us under its spell. We know that it's probably magic. you been half asleep? And have you heard voices? I've heard them calling my name. Is this the sweet sound that calls the young sailors? The voice might be one and the same. I've heard it too many times to ignore it. It's something that I'm supposed to be. Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. I can just picture Kermit the Frog sitting on the little swamp, and the camera's way out in space, and it's kind of zooming in on him playing his banjo.
Right, and then there's the big crowd around him, right? So
sounds like your audience liked that one too.
Yeah, they did. So, here's a thing that I wanted to talk about now. The Rise Up Singing and Rise Again books, you guys came up with a very interesting organizational scheme where you had topics that were very specific and sort of drawn out of thin air that organized each chapter. And I want to know how you came up with that.
I don't know if we'll have the same answer, but my recollection is we wanted to divide songs into kind of chapters that helped teachers out. So if you had, if you were a teacher and you had to plan, a lesson plan, and then I think also we knew that we wanted to group songs together for social justice awareness as well. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Peter? What's your answer going to be?
Those are all advantages to the book, but they have nothing to do with why Winds of the People was originally put together that way. It had to do with the fact that you didn't want to constantly have to look up the page number. If you have 500 or 1,000 or 1,200, Rise Up Singing and Rise Again have 1,200 songs. That's a lot of flipping through a long index. But if you could remember what chapter a song was in, the chapters are themselves alphabetical, and the songs within the chapters are alphabetical. So if you can remember that a song is, say, about peace, you go to the peace chapter, and then you look up the title within the chapter. And if it's a song that's, some of the chapters aren't actually topical subjects. They're sometimes like rounds, or in the new book we have a chapter of Motown.
Right, but what
things like that.
Yeah, but what motivated the chapter headings in Winds of the People was thinking about categorizing songs according to kind of
their subject matters. Right, subjects. I agree. They're sea songs, they're farm songs, they're songs about the earth, things like that. Yeah, I agree. They are mostly topical chapters in the first book. The second book is a little different because we have a lot more non-folk songs in there. So we have a whole chapter of blues, a whole chapter of country songs, a whole chapter of Broadway musicals. So there are more what you might call genre chapters in the second book. But the first book, they're almost all topical.
I mean, when I met Peter, he had already put Winds of the People together, and we did fashion Rise Up Singing after that songbook. But I was intimately involved with the planning of it right from the get-go. And I think that when we talked about chapters and how to categorize things, we had a team of people helping us think about it. So every person on that team would probably have a different answer for you.
Right.
I'm a teacher. I was a teacher for a long time, so maybe that's my perspective. I love the fact that anything we can do to support teachers, and they're out there doing a phenomenal job right now, by the way. I mean, they're having to put these lesson plans together in a whole new world. But at any rate, yeah, I see where Peter's coming from.
Yeah.
One of the fun things about the new book is when we were coming up with these genre chapters, we actually had to come up with kind of creative names. Like we have a chapter of sort of indie alternative rock, more recent songs in Rise Again, and we argued about that. We ended up calling it millennial or something like that.
That was a
Right,
fail.
right.
Well,
Hashtag fail.
Yeah, our millennial son didn't like a particular name for a
Some
chapter.
people like it. Some
But,
millennials like it.
The chapter of early rock and roll is called Rock Around the Clock. Some of these names we just sort of sat down and said, what should we call that chapter on early rock and roll? We don't want to just call it early rock and roll. Let's call it something fun. So we call it Rock Around the Clock.
Also, I noticed that the generations of millennial chapter don't always fit with the song that's in that chapter, I've noticed too. So, but
yeah, I mean, it's a good example of, I think, of like having an idea and having a deadline and saying, okay, what the blankety blank, we're going to go with it. And then you don't look back, except in that particular situation. And honestly, there's so many mistakes in our songbooks as well in terms of like, what key did we choose to put the song in? Why did we pick that key? And you can't make a project this big and not have a lot of mistakes. And you can't live with yourself if you're going to constantly feel bad about it. Our motto is do it anyways. If it's a mistake, move on and just laugh and try and, we tell people if you have a problem with the songbook, then it's our fault and you can let us know. We don't have a problem with all the mistakes that we've made, because I think, that's the right kind of attitude when you have a something you want to do and you're inspired. Don't let things stop you. Life's too short.
well, I mean, it's great anyway. And actually, the mistakes don't matter so much because the point is you've got the lyrics, and half the time I'm playing it differently anyway.
Yeah,
So-
that's what whiteout's for.
Right. Exactly.
And that's, we tell people, take your pen, put your name in your book first off, because they walk away. And then the other thing is, scribble all over it. You should see my copy. It's scribbled all over, because a lot of these songs aren't in keys that are good for my singing. So, yeah.
Right. Well, that brings me to another question of your system of chords being sort of on one line and they correspond to the lyrics. That's pretty unique. And you had to explain it in the beginning of the book, I noticed, that you had a whole explanation as to how to read and how to use this book. And I think that's very helpful. And I found it fine. I find it intuitive for me. But how did that come to be?
It really was very pragmatic. It had to do with the fact that if you write the chords over each line instead of after a stanza, it takes up a lot more space. And we were trying to fit a lot of songs in a short period of space. But actually, I found that quite a few people say it is actually easier to read once you get used to the system, because you don't have to keep glancing up and down in so many places. So I think the system of notating the chords it is actually kind of unique. I've never seen another book that used it other than ours. People who, once they learn to use it, a lot of people really like the system. It kind of helps your eye to move on the page if you're a song leader.
Right, and all you have to do is practice it, a couple times, and you'll get it.
Practice it on an easy song, though.
Yeah. Well, on a couple of them, I've been like, I don't know what this is, but I think that would be the case in any book. You have to look up the chord and you have to figure out where it goes. And sometimes in a printed sheet music book, they put the chord in the wrong spot and the wrong syllable or whatever. And so I think you did a great job of doing that system, and it made a lot of sense, because you can't say, "Oh, I put that in the wrong syllable," where that would go, because you got to figure it out.
Well, that's very generous of you.
The system relies on regular rhythms throughout a stanza. And when you have a song that departs from that, like a great song Annie sang it the other day is "The Weight" I think that's by the band. Anyway, it has a kind of an extra beat in there, and our system doesn't deal well with extra beats that are thrown in the middle of a stanza or something like that, or the middle of a line. So we had to kind of do some funny workarounds to try and deal with those
songs that do that.
Yeah,
He
that's
was
you know what?
notorious for
That
that.
isn't the way he wrote them. It's just the way he sang them. At least there wasn't because you can sing those songs straight. It's just he would sort of throw in an extra beat, but everybody does that.
Right. Well,
it's just that you cannot sing the weight without throwing that beat in there.
Well, I did the other day. It was a mistake. But I would say, you know, the funny thing about this book is we were just trying to come up with a way that would work for us and
Lots of other people.
and lots of other people, and it doesn't work for everybody. And so, you know, that has to be okay.
Right.
Some of Annie's friends in the past have kind of turned up their nose a little bit because it is very much seen to be a kind of a people's
You mean my
book.
jazz friends?
Yeah,
He's
basically.
trying to be nice. Okay, let's just say it how it is.
But the point is,
jazz
we tried to
friends.
make the book be fairly easy to play for somebody who's not an advanced guitarist, basically.
Yeah.
And we've definitely simplified chords a little bit. And ironically, when we made the new book and we made the jazz chapter, because it was a jazz chapter, she has a friend who was wonderful at making simplified chords that actually kept the feel for the original jazz thing,
yeah.
but didn't have the 11th chord or the
Right.
ninth
Yeah.
augmented something or other. And I couldn't have possibly come up with those chords, but he actually had a way of grasping the simplicity, but still staying true to the feel of
This
the
was
original.
a friend of ours who's a high school music teacher, and he's brilliant. He knows jazz chords like anybody, and I don't. And he was able to take these songs I love to sing and just kind of isolate them to a place where they weren't. We don't want people to feel like the book is talking down to them. Like if you're an intermediate musician, we want the book to be helpful to you. If you're a newbie musician, we want the book to be helpful. And for advanced musicians, we don't have to worry about them so much. They'll just get a little annoyed maybe at the
They'll
simplification
get a
of
fake
something.
book anyway.
But they won't need the chords.
Right.
So yeah, I mean that's the idea behind it. Probably TMI in some ways, but you know.
Well, not for me, but and
Our
and
podcast.
most of the listeners of this show are probably musicians or at least singers, and people interested in that. So I think it is very interesting
Well,
to me.
I have a little story about like I do have a friend who is just an extraordinary jazz guitarist, and I was at a small gathering at someone's house with him, and he was introducing me to some friends, and he said, "Yes, Annie made this songbook that is for amateur musicians," and I realized that's how he thinks of Rise Up Singing. But the fact is, we've met many amazing musicians who keep a copy of the songbook in their trunk of their car.
I'm one of them, actually.
Yeah, who are just really talented people, and they use it as a resource, and it's something that I think sometimes people think of it as a songbook that is for people who are just starting out, but it really isn't, because there's so much to it, and there's information about each song under the song, and I could go on and on about that.
You know, I don't know if you know who Ian Robb is, but he's a great Canadian singer-songwriter from, I guess, Ottawa. And he used to, when Sing Out magazine still existed, he did a column, a regular column on I forget what his particular column was on, but his pet peeve was that people would go to song circles, and instead of really learning the song, they would put their copy of Rise Up Singing in front of them and try to sing out of it. And so he kind of, even though Sing Out was getting a lot of financial support from Rise Up Singing, he kind of criticized the way people were using Sing Out, which I thought was kind of gutsy.
You mean the songbook?
Yeah, I'm sorry. He was criticizing the songbook, not criticizing Sing Out. And a number of years later, we had a chance to do a concert with him up in Ottawa, and he said, I said, I thought that was kind of gutsy of you to do an anti-Rise Up Singing tirade in your column. And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry about that. To tell you the truth, I loved Rise Up Singing all these years, and I really appreciate the traditional songs in there and stuff like that. I just was annoyed at some of the people that were using it a certain way in the sing-along."
Well, if you go to open mics, you take what you get. It's
There you go.
Yeah,
And-
that's true.
there are skilled people who can play out of the book and who've practiced, and there are people who are less skilled who try to do it. and eventually they'll learn how, and then it'll be fine. But
There you go. Good
that's
attitude.
kind of what an open mic is for, right? So
There you go.
it's a sing along, not a sing to, So, why don't you do another song? Is there something you had in mind that you wanted to do?
Yeah, we have a song. Yeah, we have a song we've been doing a bunch. This past year, we've been celebrating the life of Pete Seeger, because this would have been his 100th year. So we've been doing a lot of concerts around the country, singing songs he loved to sing and songs he wrote. So we thought we would do. I just have to sort of figure out what key I do this in.
You do it in G minor, actually.
Oh, G minor, yeah.
I think it's like some kind of a modal.
So one of the things about the banjo is it constantly goes out of tune. So when you do these live kind of shows and podcasts, you have to retune it while you're talking. But maybe Peter can talk a little bit. This song is called "Which Side Are You On?" And it's about a time in 1931 when the mine owners in southeastern Kentucky were locked in this struggle that was called the Harlan County War.
Oh, yeah.
And why don't you tell them about Sam Reese? His wife wrote this song.
Sam Reese was an organizer for the United Mine Workers Union, and the sheriffs and their kind of thugs were kind of trying to intimidate the union to give up their fight, which was later celebrated in the movie Harlan County, USA. And they went around to Sam and Florence's house to try and find Sam so they could beat him up, or maybe worse. And he had been warned, and so he wasn't in the house. But they went and, kind of looked under all the beds and put, poked things into closets and stuff like that. So terrorized their poor kids who were. And the next morning, Florence wrote this song, and it became an instant classic of Union solidarity. And this book that we made for Pete Seeger's 100th anniversary is called "If I Had a Hammer." It's a sing-along songbook of 50 of Pete Seeger's best songs that he used to do at his every concert that Pete ever did was a sing-along concert, basically, because he'd get the audience singing him in languages they'd never even heard of before they went to the concert.
Florence took the melody for this song from a Baptist hymn, I think, called "Lay the Lily Low," which I'd never heard of. So anyways, here's "Which Side Are You On?" Come all of you good workers, good news to you I'll tell of how the good old Union is coming here to dwell. Which side are you on? 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 My daddy was a miner, and I'm a miner too. And I'll stick with the Union till every battle's through. Which side are you on? 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 They say in Harlan County there are no neutrals there. You'll either be with the Union or a thug for J.H. Blair. Which side are you on? 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 Oh, workers, can you stand it? Tell me how you can. Will you be a lousy scab or will you take a stand? Which side are you on? 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 Don't scab for the bosses, don't listen to their lies. Us poor folks haven't got a chance unless we organize. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side
sounds like the biggest audience we've ever performed for. Not quite true.
Well, I'm sure you deserve to perform for that big an audience. So,
thanks.
We actually have performed for really big audiences at Quaker conferences. Sometimes there's 1,000 people there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's pretty big.
All right.
The hearing room seats about 50, so
There you
that's
go.
bigger than our audiences. So, what did you do in the new book different than you did in Rise Up Singing? What lessons did you learn?
We tried to make it bigger fonts. Rise Up Singing, for younger eyes, I think the smaller version works okay, but is really tiny. And the bigger version of Rise Up Singing is still a little too tiny. What else did we do?
One of the things that Pete loved about the book was how diverse it is. You can buy lots of books that are all blues or all Broadway musicals or all rock and roll, but he loved having one book that had all kinds of different genres, different languages, different styles, even different levels of difficulty to a certain extent. And I think we actually took that further with the new book, because the first book was, I would say, 95% folk music. And the second book has a substantial amount of blues, Motown, rock and roll, British invasion, stuff like that. And I think that that's enriched the book. It's made the book even it's not so much, I think, that different people necessarily use it. I don't know if blues musicians go to our book particularly, but certainly when people are doing sing-alongs and stuff like that, people do enjoy singing Elvis Presley songs or Beach Boys songs or Motown songs, things like that. So it's really fun for them to be able to get those kind of things in our books as well.
I would say that one of the bigger differences between the two books, from my viewpoint as a songbook maker, is when we made Rise Up Singing, we weren't as woke as we are now. We included songs in Rise Up Singing that are really racist, come from a racist kind of background. And we tried really hard with this newer book to address that. And I mean, it's still a work in progress. We are privileged white people, and we're trying to examine our own whiteness. And so we made, an effort with Rise Again to include, a lot more Black gospel, Black church songs. And we really tried our best to get folks from the genres who are experts in those genres to recommend songs. So, for instance, for the blues chapter, we have someone who is an incredible blues musician who helped recommend a bunch of the songs for that. And for the Black gospel songs, we have a friend who has a Black gospel choir here in Amherst, and we talked to other friends of ours, people of color, and tried to find out songs from people who sing songs in the Latino communities and Latinx communities. So, yeah, it's kind of a work in progress, and maybe a statement of, where the social justice movement is trying to go.
We had 3 different cantors from Reconstructionist synagogues who worked on the Jewish songs for the new book, for instance. So again, we tried to reach out beyond our own limited understanding to get new people. I mean, I wouldn't have known about Debbie Friedman. I mean, Debbie Friedman's incredible, and we have a few Debbie Friedman songs in the book.
And everybody in certain communities know about her. They know that, she's written these incredible songs and was an incredible person, and you can see YouTube videos of her over and over again. But in our limited world, we weren't as familiar with her. And now we get to have that. And I think it's one of the best things about Rise Again is it's showing the rest of the world our own education as we kind of keep continuing to learn songs,
We were doing a concert down in Naples a few years ago with a friend of Annie's, and there was a woman from, was she from Argentina, I think, Annie, that was at the concert, and she said, I can't believe you have these Nueva Canción songs in there. How did you learn these songs? How did you put these songs in there? And it was because we knew a woman in Boston who was friends with lots and lots of Latinx singers, and she knew those songs and told us, you got to put in these particular songs, which we never would have even heard of them.
But we knew the questions to ask. So we said, what are the songs that we absolutely have to have in here that help represent your community?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I do like the fact that you include a lot more modern stuff. And when I say modern, I mean 1950s. But, because you've got, the Motown and R&B and the rock and roll, and you have several sections. The one that confused me a bit was Surfing USA. I think some of that is not surfing.
Yeah. No,
but
it's not.
That was probably a poor choice for the
subtle play on words.
American pop after 1963 or something like
Right.
Peter said, well, let's make it Surfing USA. And I was like, what? I don't get it. And he said, well, you're surfing along the USA. Really
that's probably the most confusing chapter title.
the biggest stretch there was. Yeah. But, it gets people talking.
Yeah,
we love to see people argue, too.
I use it, though. I mean, that's the thing, is it's one of the best sections, because it's like, you got Journey in there, I think, and you got a bunch of other stuff that is more...
Nancy Sinatra.
Oh, Nancy Sinatra with Journey, of course. And I think, where were the Bare Naked Ladies? I think they were under millennial songs. But yeah, it's nice to look at the book, and I'm impressed with the fact you just got it together, let alone that it's good. I think that, when you think of 1,200 songs, that's kind of overwhelms me just by saying 1,200 songs. How did you start a task like that? I mean, I know that it was a process over years, but how did you decide? Did you decide I'm going to put 1,200 songs in the book, or that's just what it came out to?
Well, thank God for Google Docs. I'll say that. We had a list of songs that we started almost immediately after Rise Up Singing came out. Mm-hmm. And the very first song on that list was Swimming to the Other Side by Pat Humphries of Emma's Revolution, because we were already singing that song. We would just add it to our repertoire. We'd say, hey, this isn't in the book, but we want to teach it to you. So that we had a list of songs, and then we had all these people that, would suggest songs. And for each of our songbooks, we had a song selection committee.
Ironically, when we were doing Rise Up Singing, we didn't think we actually would have 1,200 songs. We made a list that was a lot longer than we expected to be able to get permission for.
How many were on that list?
Well, I don't know. I think we were trying to get about maybe 1,300 songs, but we got almost all of them. And it's really because Harold Leventhal had active relationships with the kind of the people in those music companies. And he kind of called people up and said, you remember when I did a favor for you? Well, look, you should really sign off on these particular songs. So we thought we'd never get, for instance, Beatles songs, stuff like that. And so it kind of ended up being longer than we expected it to be. But with the new book, we figured, well, if we could do 1,200 songs once, we can do it again. And actually, I have to admit, there are a heck of a lot of great songs that I don't know why we didn't put them in, but yeah. We did try to put in Neil Young songs. We had a lot of Neil Young songs, and that was not our fault. Neil Young wouldn't sign off on it. So,
what kills me is about a year after Rise Again came out, Neil Young made an agreement with our publisher.
Yeah, we could have used them.
So if we had waited 2 years, we could have put all Neil Young songs in there, but oh well.
Well, you can only do what works at the time. You can't, although you could do a new edition of it. But
yeah, I don't know about that. We both these songbooks took a good 2 years full time to do. And with the newer one, I was also learning how to do the layout on a whole new Adobe program that I wasn't familiar with. And then our publisher had someone in their graphic arts department who I worked with side by side and laying out 1,200 songs in a book. I mean, I was a graphic artist back when you used a paste up board and a wax machine. So you know.
Wow.
It's a daunting task. And we spent every day just culling through all these beautiful songs, and not all of them made them into the book. And some songs made it into the newer book that probably shouldn't have gone in.
You know, we mentioned earlier this thing which we call the music box, which is we actually have over 2,500 songs in this music box. It's this online song database where you can listen to lots of different videos of the songs and learn more about the songs and stuff. And one nice thing about that is songs that didn't make it into to Rise Again, if we really have learned them since and realized they're important. For example, Joe Jenks wrote an incredible song called Lady of the Harbor about immigrant issues.
Yeah.
And we didn't know about it. It was actually written in time, but we didn't know about it.
I sing it at almost every concert.
We didn't know to put it in Rise Again. So we put it on our website. You can find the words there. You can find the chords there, actually. And you can see videos of different people singing it. And we're also doing a thing right now called the Daily Song of Hope. You can go to our website, riseupandsing.org/daily. And today's song was Gonna Get, what's it called? Gonna
Get Through This World.
Gonna Get Through This World.
Lisa Gutkin and Woody
of the Klezmatics. And we just really love that song. So we put that song, which is by Woody Guthrie with new music, in this online database. So you can go on there and see Klezmatics singing it, or see other people singing that song. So that's a way that some of the songs that we really are mad that we didn't know when we made Rise Again, we can at least put on the website.
Yeah. I mean, people don't understand. We have lost sleep over this because, you make a songbook and then you hear an amazing song and you're like, where was I? What was I doing? Why didn't they know to contact us? But, so obviously we think we're the center of the universe, but we're not. Songs exist out there that are phenomenal, and we're just learning. So
yeah, well, you're only two people. You can't have experiences of more than you. So I think you get a pass on that one.
I don't want to forget to say there is a documentary out about our work that's for the month of May. The documentarists who made it are going to show it. I think they're going to show it on May 3rd, actually, on YouTube. They're going to have a program. It's called We Began to Sing, and people can go to songkeepers.com.
No.
Right?
Songkeepers.ca.
Oh, songkeepers.ca. Two Canadian filmmakers did a documentary of Peter and me working with Pete Seeger, and it sort of shows us working a little bit on the songbook and what our lives are like in our home. They followed us around for 8 years.
Yeah, I actually watched it. I did see that.
Oh, did you see it? It's only 20 minutes long. It's not very long.
Yeah.
But on May 3rd, if you go to our website, you'll be able to find out about it. There'll be a live showing on YouTube of this full film, and there'll be other songwriters, musicians, talking about the importance of Pete Seeger and why he's had such an impact on their lives on this particular online show. So if you go to our site, you'll be able to find out more about it. And by the way, if anybody would like our newsletter, you could go to our site and do riseupandsing.org/subscribe, and then they can get news about these kinds of things.
Yeah. And the website again is riseupandsing.net, right?
No, .org.
.org.
Yeah.
I messed it up twice now.
It's okay.
If you can't remember that, you can actually also do groupsinging.org. That's a little easier to remember, and it actually goes to the same place, groupsinging.org.
If you Google Peter Blood, you might get a site about a pirate. And if you Google Annie Patterson, you might get a site about this phenomenal Alaskan illustrator. But normally people can Google our names and find us too.
Especially if you put us both in there, you'll find us.
Right.
Or Rise Up Singing.
Any
people
of that will
often,
work.
You get extra stars, Aaron, because people often call me Annie Peterson. They just can't get the Patterson right. I don't know what that is, but it's probably because of Peter. I'm going to blame it on him.
Well, they call me Aaron Thornburg for some reason. I think after the movie Thornbirds came out, and then everybody uses that as the default. But
that's in Greta Thornburg now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
oh well.
Anyway, There is an actress,
guess.
Maria Tornberg, too, but
Cool.
I don't know her. But so the thing I ask at the end is actually what advice you give to other people who are wanting to go into whatever you're into. So let's say I'm a young person and I want to do music and I want to write a songbook that's going to be famous throughout the folk world. What would I do? Or what advice would you give them?
You know, everything's changing so much from when we first kind of started these projects. Oh, the teachers are going down our street right now. You know, we've been having these teacher parades, and because we have a lot of children on our street, I'm getting distracted by it. So, oh, wow, and they've got a police escort. Hi, teachers. Thank you.
They're
Thank
important.
you for all you're doing. I would say to people, just try and find someone you know to connect with, and don't do it in a vacuum. You know, try not to do things all by yourself. Try to get someone who believes in you, and just say, hey, I'm thinking about this project, and I would really like some support. And start that way, because that's what we've done. We've always had support from phenomenal people who have had our backs, and it's an intense thing to follow your passion. It doesn't always work, and people will critique you. So I think having that support is really good.
So what I'll say is that I think guitar and uke are both really great people's instruments. It is possible to learn in a few months how to play uke or guitar well enough that you can get actually people singing with each other. And you can start out with your friends or with your family and have a lot of fun. A book like Rise Up Singing or Rise Again helps you because you'll know lots and lots of songs in there, and the chords are simple. And once you figure out the system, you can learn from it. The other thing I was going to say is it's not easy to publish books. It's, you know, you can always self-publish and stuff like that, but anybody can put songs on YouTube. And the great thing about YouTube is you link to it, you send it to all your friends, your relatives, and they can actually see you singing. People on the other side of the world can listen to you singing a song. And I think that that's an incredible, radical idea, that people have a way to share their music. And it really is true that people have gone from complete nobodies to being very, very well-known bands just by people listening to them on YouTube. Right. I think it's the most radical thing in the world. It doesn't rely going through a gatekeeper like you used to have of, you know, getting a contract with a big company or something like that. So I'm not saying everything's equal by any means in this world today, but it is, I think, a great way to share your joy and your music with other people.
Yeah. Good advice. So you guys want to do one more song before we go?
We could do that.
Or I could play one if you prefer.
What do you think, Peter? Do you have a song you want to do?
You know what we could do? Well May the World Go.
Sure, we could do that.
This is a song that we frequently finish our concerts with Pete Seeger. It's a song that he wrote new words to an old English ballad called "Well May the Keel Row." A keel was a boat, and this is kind of a fun song on the banjo and the fiddle. And whenever we do sing-along concerts with our sing-along book, if I had a hammer, we would end the concerts with this particular song.
I just finished doing a tour down in the Southeast, like I said, but before that I was out on the West Coast with Emma's Revolution, a fabulous duo, Pat Humphries and Sandy O. When Rise Again first came out, we did a bunch of shows with different people, like Pat and Sandy and Charlie King and
Tom Chapin.
Tom Chapin came and joined us. And
McCutcheon.
a lot of people are part of the same union as us, and so we had them come and we did a variety of shows, and we tended to end the shows with this song.
Yeah, well, it's a good choice. I know this one. It's great. And Pete Seeger used to end with this too, didn't he? some of his shows?
Oh, I'm not sure. Did he, Peter?
I didn't go to, to tell you the truth, we didn't go to a lot of Pete Seeger concerts.
Isn't that funny?
I mean, he certainly performed it over a long period of time. I don't know that he necessarily ended concerts with it, but maybe later in his life he might have.
Yeah.
The problem with this song, of course, is it's going to take 10 minutes to tune the banjo.
Well,
I thought about having more than one banjo ready, but then you just have 2 out-of-tune banjos.
well, do you want me to play the Pastors of Plenty or something first, and then you can play this one?
We're ready.
Okay.
Well, may the world go, the world go, the world go. Well, may the world go when I'm far away. Sing it again. Well, may the world go, the world go, the world go. Well, may the world go when I'm far away. Well, may the skiers turn, the swimmers turn, the lovers burn. Peace may the generals learn when I'm far away. Oh, well, may the world go, the world go, the world go. Well, may the world go when I'm far away. Sweet may the fiddle sound, the banjo play, the old hoedown, dancers swinging around and around when I'm far away. Well, may the world go, the world go, the world go. Well, may the world go when I'm far away. Fresh may the breezes blow, clear may the streams flow, blue above and green below when I'm far away. Oh, well, may the world go, the world go, the world go. Well, may the world go when I'm far away. Well, may the world go, the world go, the world go. Well, may the world go when I'm far away. Woo! I tell you what, when you see
Sorry,
the
delayed.
when you see the entire staff of the local elementary school driving down your street with a police escort, you think the world is going to go pretty well. People are figuring out how to stay in touch, and that I wish we could have shown all of your listeners what that was like during those last few minutes of talking to you, but it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, sort of speaks to the power of just togetherness and getting together with other like-minded people to sing or ride down the street to let the students know they're still there. And, this is great. We're having this podcast through Skype, which is how a lot of students are learning right now.
That's true.
Is through Skype and Zoom and all those other, usually Zoom. But I really appreciate your time. This has been a lot of fun for me. Now I know more about the book, and I can spread the gospel of Rise Up Singing. It's quite an achievement, and I thank you for doing it.
You're very welcome.
And so is there some information you want to give people about how to reach you or reach your website or get your music or any of that kind of stuff before we go?
Well, if you want to know about Annie's performing and her recordings, you go to our website, which again is riseupandsing.org or groupsinging.org, and then you do /Annie, and it will show you about her concerts that are coming up. She is doing twice a week online concerts right now on Monday at 3 p.m. on Facebook Live. And if you go to our website to the online concerts place, it'll tell you a link to our Facebook page where those are being broadcast. And then on Wednesday evenings at 7, we're doing it on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. We have a YouTube channel. And if you search for Rise Up and Sing channel on YouTube, you will find that channel. You can subscribe if you like. And if you go there a little before 7, you'll see Annie magically appearing on YouTube Live. So those are 2 places that you can see Annie in the flesh. You may see me in the background playing fiddle a little bit. Mm-hmm. And that's a fun way to connect with us. And on the Monday ones, you can actually put in requests from Rise Up Singing and Rise Again in the chat feed during the concert, and she'll try as much as she can to fit in a bunch of those requests.
Yeah, I mean, this is a learning curve for everybody who hasn't done this before, and I would say we fit that category. But in general, people can email us through our website. We love to hear from people. We love to hear from you. If you have anything that you've been singing a lot that you don't see on our website, let us know. I mean, that kind of stuff. We love to stay connected, and I think now more than ever, it's a really good thing. So.
All right. Well, thanks. And I wanted to also say we are coming from the Hearing Room virtually. It's hearingroom.net. So you can go there in order to find out all about the Hearing Room and what we do there. And you can also go to our Greenville Junction shop, which is on Facebook Marketplace. That's Greenville, JUNKTIONSHOPPE. And this has been Annie Patterson and Peter Blood, and I'm Aaron Tornberg from the Hearing Room. Everybody have a great week.
If you start with a dream and share it with some friends, the idea deepens and grows. The dream takes shape, it has form and substance, a community soon arose. A listening room, the hearing room, a place to find a home to play. A listening room, the hearing room, express yourself and have your say. The walls are thin, sirens blare, the tables sit near folding chairs, the stage is set with paint and glue, and love went into every screw. The light shine bright on every star, they come to play from near and far. The light shine bright on every star, they come to play from near and far. A listening room, the hearing room, a place to find a home to play. A listening room, the hearing room, express yourself and have your say.